I started recording original music in 2009, and prior to that, music was always a part of my life. I took piano lessons at a pretty young age. I did play early on in school, that would have been alto sax, and in church I did a wonderful job at playing the bells. I could ring the two bells I had really well. There was that, and I recorded my first completed song in 2009, and actually the previous year got around to writing the song that I had in my mind for many a year. But really, the very first time I ever recorded myself singing, somewhere in 2005, I was 13 years old, and I was playing around just a cappella with vocal overdubs that I later came to use a lot. Certainly had a fondness for the Carpenters, Michael Jackson, Les Paul and Mary Ford. Les Paul invented multi-track recording. My songs would make no sense without that, so many artists owe a great debt to Les Paul, artists, musicians, and producers. And I grew up listening to a lot of older music, disco, a lot of R&B, Motown, and crooners like Nat King Cole, Perry Como, Smokey Robinson, so many. Ella Fitzgerald, Boswell Sisters, so many influences. I was certainly much more interested in acting. Like, I didn't think of myself as a musician at all. I didn't think of myself as a singer. I wasn't a good singer, but I ended up being involved in musical theater in my community growing up. Also involved with drama classes in high school. I was more interested in script writing, video editing, and acting. Even actually making animations as well too. So music really didn't come into the picture in the way that it is now until I was 18. That was 2009.
There's such no heart to find. We could make things up. On the pick, it must be difficult finding this art. It's bizarre. How bizarre. The reckless.
Music was always there. I just didn't really think that, I would be creating 200 original songs kind of deal. It wasn't really a thought in my life to take music seriously. And in fact, I was very frustrated by music because I always felt I couldn't get it right. But that feeling I had after completing early stuff I did, I had this sense of accomplishment. And I completed something, and that little something can live on. I think that I always went into every project with thoughtfulness that, down the line, this thing might still be hanging around. So I always wanted to put in my best foot forward. They didn't always turn out the way I wanted, but it really got started once I had music-making software. I was just noodling around in this software called Magic's Music Maker, and later on I would use Logic. It's really as simple as plug and play. I have my MIDI keyboard and a microphone, and the setup has always been like that, since I started.
Nobody knows that his life blows, and nobody notices he's the saddest kid. Nobody knows. Oh, 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 ah. Oh, 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 oh. Nobody cares.
Even as early as 2009, I still didn't think of myself as a music artist. I was an actor first. And in 2010, I was in theater school, and I do believe there were some songs I think I used on some project or something. It wasn't a lot, but I know that I was recording while I was in theater school. I thought of music as more of an extension of my acting. That aspect has never gone away, but it was just something that I kind of did, and I had these ideas come through to me. And, really just trying to teach myself how to sing better, because certainly before I ever started recording, I couldn't really hold a tune very well, singing flat, off key and stuff like that. And I think I'd always wanted to have my music sound very vintage, like retro. I always had that. I think it was just a matter of affordability, honestly, because it's true, the more expensive songs, modern sounding sounds, they are more expensive. I could find a lot of, abandoned sounds for either cheaper or even free in some cases. Having that sort of 80s, 90s, early 2000s sound, that was always there. And I liked it too.
You can't break my name, it'll remain the same. Do what you want to do. Do 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 what you do. Throw it all away. Do what you have to do. Do 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 do. Should I care anymore? I'm down to the floor. To live is such a chore. Take it, just take it. Take it, just go. Just take it. Take it, just go. Just take it. Take it, just take it.
But once again, for the first few years, 2009 to 2011, I wasn't really thinking so much about it. It was fun. It was a pastime. I didn't think there would be anyone interested in it aside from maybe a few friends or something like that, maybe my family. There was more hope in the acting, and unfortunately that didn't really pan out in my life. So when acting didn't really turn out, I went to the next best thing, which was music that I was kind of working on alongside acting and writing that I like to do, and video editing. The original music, very, very early on, wanted to do original music because of copyright laws. I guess if you think of the silver lining of the whole copyright controversy, that's even worse today than when I started music. When you're posting stuff online, it felt natural to me to try to use as much original material as possible. So there was that element that why I got started in it. During the years 2012 to 2015, I would still think of this as early on in my music endeavors, and I was still very much describing my music in terms of its experimental qualities, but I think much more early on, I didn't really have concepts of key and time signature, beats per minute, and stuff like that. I didn't really have a good concept of that, and it was more just about the kind of performance art of the recordings I was making and the production of it, and really practicing kind of close harmony sounds with myself.
Living with reason and rationality, being deluded isn't any more easy. Living this life, I got you. Probabilities speak much more clearly. It hurts feeling the pleasure and pain. Then you get caught in the sea. Things have changed so drastically.
Certainly by 2013, 2014, I had already quite a collection of songs, and they were very sad early on. They were very moody. It was just like this very kind of broken, detuned sound. And the vocals I was going for weren't, they were just different from what I do now. And I believe that I had already put some of the songs out online in some form or another, but certainly nothing close to what I started to do in 2018, which I'll get into a little later. The other thing of starting out was that so much of what I did was just me in a room doing these songs and with my writing. And even music videos that I did at that time, which were a lot more cringy than anything I've ever done. In the early years, there's a lot of really questionable video shoots.
I want your stay. I want your stay. I want your stay. I want to give. I want your stay. I want your stay. I want your stay.
But for the first time, I got a sense of doing an open mic in 2014, and I think that was a good starting place for me as an artist in terms of getting a sense of an audience, because I certainly grew up in theater as a child, but with music I don't think I really got feeding off of an audience, because when I was singing and stuff, I was usually in the background. Being a soloist is a very different experience, and I didn't have very much of it, and I certainly tried even early on to push myself and expose myself to settings like that, whether it was karaoke or open mics. I think just having that sense of a crowd is very useful for what I ended up doing. At the end of the day, I'm still one person as a one-man band with my computer, MIDI keyboard, and microphone, and my notes on my phone. It's the exact same setup, right? But those early years, what started to make the difference was trying to go out and put myself in front of people and doing what I do. When I first started out, I actually didn't figure out the playback thing yet, so when I first started going to open mics, it was just a cappella doing a cover song, and that's all that was, and that was okay. And as the years went on, by 2016, or maybe it was 2017, anyway, somewhere around there, I definitely was doing more open mics and doing a few original songs with my music accompanying me.
They'll be judging. I'll make it now. Don't you fret. I'll get with it. I'll make it now.
However, there was a major shift in my music journey in 2015 when, I think I've talked about it before, but it's when I had multiple hard drive crashes. So this one PC I was working on, the motherboard fried. I had an external drive as well, and I kept stuff on CDs and thumb drives and different things. But when the motherboard went on my PC and I ended up having an external drive fail, it actually fell about 3 feet on the floor, and that was it. And I lost many files. I suppose it wasn't such a big deal at the time. In 2015, I was, 24? It just seemed like everything I worked towards creatively was gone, and I wasn't even sure I was going to continue doing music. I know I started to study music a bit in college. I didn't end up finishing that program. I did some study in terms of the music industry and familiarizing myself with production tools and that sort of thing. After this hard drive stuff, that deterred me from wanting to continue, even though I still had all the masters for my songs. There might have been some that were completely lost. Looking at it now, it's not such a big deal. But I do know I put it away for some time and ended up switching from a PC to a Mac, which for musicians, there's a difference in terms of working on PC and working on Mac, and there's your advantages and disadvantages to both. But when I switched to Mac, that was a learning curve. This is 2016. I actually went back to college.
Feel it coming on. All right. Don't be shy. There's no way to live your life. Do what you got to do. We gotta start to move your feet.
The musical ideas still came to my mind, and I suppose you have to understand that I never really knew what to do with all of this. It was just like, I'm having all these ideas. I don't have access to like a choir and a band and background singers or producers, whatever. It was just me doing it because it just started pouring out of me, By 2017, there was a clear picture of myself as like, well, no, I'm an artist, Like, I make music. And I didn't really see it as that before. I honestly didn't. I was a closet performer, in a sense. I just didn't really want to put out a lot of the stuff I was doing. And yeah, at a certain point, you just had to look at the situation and say, well, you're an artist, Be honest with what's happening. I know that I'm much happier when I'm creating. For artists, you can't really function the same as other folks in ways. It may not make sense to the rational world, but for artists, you know that you have to do this, or else you just kind of feel a little crazy, or you feel crushed. as a soul, as a person. So it's something that you feel compelled to do and something you need to do that's good for your mental health.
Ooh, I gotta do it, I love it. I gotta figure it out before my time runs out. Ooh, I gotta do it, I love it. I gotta figure it out before my time runs out.
Over the years, I had certainly done a lot of reading about music, reading up on theory, reading up on the voice, on singing technique, all of that sort of stuff. I mean, I really started to dive into it, and I became fascinated with it. Not only from the perspective of the artists I love, like Carpenters and Michael Jackson. I was very interested in the research of Diana Deutsch. I had been very fascinated by the concept of audio illusions, outsider music. I found very much an area of fascination. Like there were these facets of music that, like, it's not really directly related to music, but it is. There's these weird sort of mysterious areas that aren't well known, and so having these unknowns about it, this sense that the creative fountain is very full. You just have to be open enough to receive what kind of messages and what kind of sonic ideas come through. You know, you really have to be open and accepting to take music into a very kind of experimental nature. I would think so. It's a lot about openness, honesty, acceptance, authenticity, that kind of thing.
And you know our dreams stay alive, even though you wanna skip to a distant future. This is to anyone feeling like we're going nowhere. This goes to how we get comfort and why.
I know that my music skill had improved because if I listen to like the very first stuff, like from 2010 versus something I was doing in 2017, like, I mean, obviously there's growth there. It makes me think, like, if I can do something like this, I mean, anyone can do it, because through practice, quite naturally, you're going to get better. I don't think I've necessarily done anything really extreme in order or intense to try to increase my music ability. It's just from the years of doing it over and over again, doing a live show, whether that was a 3-song set or just singing one song at an open mic or doing a YouTube video, whatever it is. It's just through doing it that you kind of become more of it.
You did it now. You're making me sick of love. You wouldn't brighten my day with light. You thought it as if we weren't worthy. Oh.
Definitely by 2017, I was using music in a way that I hadn't before. Like, music was sort of in the periphery of my life. If I really think of it, music, from as early as piano lessons as a child to the very first moments I was recording at my hometown in my bedroom, it was a withdrawn activity, but it was something that wasn't really the center of my life. It became more of a focal point only because acting didn't work out. Even though music is extraordinarily challenging, especially for somebody who, it's not like I majored in music. Trying to do it as the person that I am with the kind of stuff I was doing, it's like, well, that was impossible, right? Like, I was out of my mind. It started to creep into the forefront. Once again, I was in a college program. As I said, I went back to college, and then I started using these songs for class projects. And again, it was just because that's what was available. As a class, as a group, in this program I was in television broadcasting, we had to go through so much content in a week, creating like 30-minute shows in a studio setting, and even just on a DSLR camera or professional video equipment, editing on a laptop at home. I mean, my music, it was just kind of there, you know, so I didn't see any reason why I couldn't start to use my music, use my acting talents, everything. I put everything into that period of my life.
Really meant a lot to me. We fell in love. Oh, and even though the sun doesn't shine for us at the same time.
It wasn't until 2019, actually, that there was a fateful night. I went to this bar and met other local artists and producers and musicians, and I was invited there and basically encouraged out of the performance closet, because again, like I just didn't really see it as anything. I mean, of course, like anybody, you dream that something you're passionate about or something you're working on is going to do well. In a way, I was kind of coaxed out of this sort of cocoon I was in, and from there, 2019, then I started working with other artists on my music and producers, and took it upon myself to think differently about stuff I had recorded before. They're all a part of me. I suppose you could say, well, maybe if you feel your best stuff was starting in 2018, why not have started your music journey in 2018? Why do you have to include all this stuff from 2009, 2012, 2015, stuff that's like, why does everybody need that? Well, the thought about that was just that we live in an age where social media companies are very hungry for content, and that includes Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon. It's not just the YouTubes and Facebooks and Instagram, TikTok. All of these platforms are looking for more and more and more. I always seemed to kind of have this thoughtfulness about what I was doing. At least there was something lyrically interesting about some of those early songs, and some of the vocals aren't terrible. The sounds aren't that bad, but I think my sound has gotten a bit fuller over the years, even more than it already was.
You could take it there. Maybe we could fly 100 million miles if you just make the move. Ooh, come on, you could take it there. Maybe we could fly 100 million miles. Maybe you just make a move.
In answering how I got started, it was certainly a long process. It had to do with my own drive to want to do it, but it was also that there were people along the way who encouraged me and said, you know, yeah, you have some cool things here. I think that I have this attitude like, well, why not? Why not put it out? Why not try and do these things? I don't know what's going to happen. I don't want to live to be elderly and then start thinking, you know, what if, and have regrets about my music. I might have regrets about other stuff, but I don't want to have the regret about what I should have done or didn't do with my music, my acting, my video editing, my writing. I want to know that I tried all those things, that I really put in some effort to try to make something out of this. So really, I mean, there's many answers to why I'm doing music. I've always been comfortable with my why. I don't know if other folks are comfortable with why. It's always this continual fascination with music and recorded sound, and also wanting to share my story and hopefully give some hope and inspiration for people who listen to it. It's been a long road, and there's still a lot of road ahead of me.
Fly like a dream of your heart. Make it be the naturally smart. Fly like a dream of your heart. Make it be the naturally
thing evolved over the years, and I can certainly, like anybody, get that negative filter in my mind where I think of all the criticisms over the years, and that was very heavy on me very early on. As an artist starting out, I mean, I'm talking like teachers that would say cruel things to me. I'm talking about my peers that would make fun of me, and the online hate I would receive, and that's part and parcel of it. I had it pretty bad in those early years. I really did. And even from my family was like, what are you doing? Like, get a real job, basically. Or why don't you focus on the stuff that you can do really well? Why are you focused on this thing that it's like you're sort of figuring it out as you're going? This isn't the thing that we think you're the best at. Well, it seemed that the things that I'm actually really good at, I couldn't really get my foot in the door to get to do those things. So music always ended up being like I say, music was always just there in the background, in the periphery, I know how this sounds, yeah, like I have absolutely no control in my life, but somebody's twisting my arm to do this. No, it didn't, the music kind of moved itself in front of my life. I didn't really ask to have all of these musical ideas and be able to just compose like I did this before. If you really think of it, you're like, how does this person do this? I think that just the amount of stuff I did, it was something that I just kept going. No matter what anybody said, even though there were times that, yeah, I deleted stuff offline and I didn't want to sing live and stuff like that. But it always just kind of wanted to come through. Music, it wants to move through me. I mean, it literally comes through me. All of the instruments, the lyrics, the production of it, a lot of that, it's already there in my mind, and all I have to do is just walk. I just have to walk into that space. Visions come true. 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 It's a long-winded way of talking about getting started. I mean, it's sort of like, how does a spider know to spin its web? I mean, it's sort of like that kind of thing, It's just, you just kind of have to do it. Be true to yourself as you're doing it. I think that's one of the hardest things. Guess I'm blessed in a way because I'm very stubborn, and I don't think I've ever really wanted to bend for anyone else, I mean, that was a criticism very early on in my journey with this, is sort of like, I was sort of acting as though I was doing things a bit ahead of my years. Like, it's like I wasn't in position to really do X, Y, and Z, but I mean, I just went with how I felt. As time has gone on, as I started to kind of define the genre of music I was doing, there's very much R&B and soul music, and there's dance music and soft rock even. I would call it more soft rock than actual hard rock. There's a part of me that has that bravado where I just want to step forward and be really bold. And I guess it is kind of silly in ways, because it's like, yeah, I mean, in some ways I really don't have all the skills that are necessary. There's definitely talent there, and the writing creates very vivid images, or so I've heard from people who listen to my music. I want my sugar to stay right where we ought to play. I don't want to lose again. I want my sugar to stay deep in my mind to pay. I don't want to lose. I would think if you were to study what I'm doing, I think you would start to notice that, no, there are some points where I'm doing things there's average singing, but then there's moments where it's a little more advanced in what it's doing, if that makes sense. So there's certainly been a lot of mimicry involved in the process of building my voice. Of course, I started out with mimicry of a lot of my favorite artists, and that's how it grew, along with my reading that I do on music and voice, and as well as vocal training. I've had that both as an actor and as an artist as well. And I think there's still so much more to learn, even after going on like 15 years. I want to remain open and teachable, gain even more knowledge. I mean, if you can imagine I take this 15 years and you add another 15 years on it, well, maybe I might have something very interesting to say, you know? I've learned so much from this. It's helped me, I've said this before, I know I have. It's helped me so much in my personal life and has helped me, well, as well in my professional life and my educational journey. I can't imagine my life without music. It just became a part of me. I don't think I really set out to have it that way, and there are times I almost want to sort of tell it to go on its way, but it has so much more that it wants to share with me. You know, it's like a best friend. I didn't think I would actually get this far with it, to have been writing so many albums and songs and the different things that I do with it. I guess in a way this is only the beginning. But
It is worth doing it, you don't. No more waiting. Let's get it on. Let me hear you say it now. It is worth doing it, you don't. No more waiting. Let's get it on. Doing it, you don't.
I think as an overall picture, I hope that there's something about it that's charming. I would hope so. I think that there is certainly a part of this that, to me, I kind of like playing into that almost like a B-movie kind of idea with it. And I always want to retain fun with it. I mean, if you're really talking about how to get started, well, certainly you have to be in a decent mental space to do music, and you want to be well-rested, generally healthy to do music, because it can be quite physically demanding sometimes, and I take a lot of time to rest, actually. I do. My voice, for sure. I actually try to really rest my voice a lot, because when I go to use it, I really go to town with it. So for myself, even though it sounds like no matter what I do with my voice, it always sort of works like a foghorn. It just kind of, no matter how high of a note or low of a note I'm hitting, it almost sounds like I'm always hitting the same note or the same tone. I don't know, it's just my voice is kind of its own little ominous thing that it just kind of is the way that it is. And I certainly, over the years, I've had to learn to like my voice, because I don't necessarily like it. I've had to work with it for many years. It's not the easiest instrument to work with. I say that for myself, because I know my voice. It's not always strong. Sometimes the dynamics are weird. I do weird things with it.
One big superstar group. We need everyone led into the loop. One big superstar group. You and you mix into the soup again. One big superstar group. Yeah, I am the prize, don't you let it do fun. One big superstar group. Come on, work it good like you give out. One big superstar group.
So when somebody asks you to perform one of your songs live, you tell them no. No, I'm not going to do that. Oh, I'm kidding. That's really how a lot of it got started. It was definitely it came out of theater. It's part of my makeup and favored pastime, and again, the affordability factor. I happen to be the cheapest singer I can find. With all the things that I like to do on my music, you know, it makes sense. I think as well, I became somebody that was doing all of this on his own. And I don't recommend that to anybody. Once you've done it, then that's almost like that's expected of you in a sense, you know. Well, then that's kind of what you're known for, you know, is doing everything on your own, you know, being that one-man band. and I have no idea why I seem to be called to do this work and to do it in the way that I do it. Anyhow, I hope that answers the question. That's really how I got started.
I'm fresh.